In this video, I'm going to be talking about a very peculiar kind of hallucination I experience on a regular basis, and it's called a proprioceptive hallucination. And if that word is rather complex and foreign to you, do not worry because I will explain everything I know about it in this video. And if you are new here, my name is Kit and I have something called schizoaffective disorder, which is a condition where someone experiences symptoms of schizophrenia, such as delusions and hallucinations, but also symptoms of a mood disorder, either major depression or, in my case, bipolar. I struggle with a few different kinds of hallucinations when it comes to my disorder, but I'd say this one is probably the most bizarre. So to start, the key thing about any kind of hallucination is that at its core, it is a sensory experience that is not real. Most of the time, they affect one of the 5 basic senses, with the most common hallucinations being seeing or hearing things that are not there. However, smelling, tasting, and feeling things that aren't there are also common hallucinations. But they can go beyond those senses, and this is where proprioceptive hallucinations come into play. And I know what you might be thinking, proprioceptive? What on earth does that word even mean? She said it twice now. Well, it has to do with the false sensory experience of something called proprioception, which is simply a term for how your body senses where its parts are. It's controlled by receptors all over the body, and some are found in the skin, while others are found in the muscles and the joints. Those receptors tie into the nervous system and tell the brain where the body is so that you can accurately move. It's your sense of where your body is and where it's going. It's essentially physical self-awareness. Proprioception is how you know that your legs are under you and that your arms are at your sides. It's what keeps you from falling while you're walking, and it helps you know how to move your hands so that you can pick things up. And when there is a disorder in this system, there are a few common effects. Keep in mind this group does not include psychotic people like me. Hallucinations are different, and I will explain, just stick with me. But people who have issues with their proprioceptive mechanisms often have problems with balance and walking. You can imagine how maybe not knowing exactly where your feet are might make it a little more complicated to walk on an uneven surface. They also might use too much strength to grab or pick something up, and they might be a little clumsy and bump into things a lot. People with multiple sclerosis, ALS, and brain injuries are a few of the kinds of people that can have issues with the system itself, and it's also commonly found in autistic people. Make sense? Great. Now let's talk about proprioception in terms of psychosis and what that might look like, because it's a little different. The key difference here is that a proprioceptive hallucination does not arise from a problem with the proprioceptive mechanisms themselves. The receptors work fine, it's just a misfiring in the brain like any other hallucination. Like how my eyes are fine even if I see shadowy figures sometimes. It doesn't mean that my eyes don't work, but it does mean that I have a false sensory experience that involves them. So, proprioceptive hallucinations cause false experiences that involve the proprioceptive system. Anyways, the symptoms of a hallucination are a little bit different from a dysfunction in the whole proprioceptive system. Someone with this particular brand of psychosis might experience feeling that their body is moving when it's not, or that it's in a different place than it is. And I understand that might be a little vague, so let me kind of add to it by sharing some of my own experience. For example, my proprioceptive hallucinations feel like my feet have shifted over a few inches, almost like I've slipped on the floor. And it happens when I walk, but it also happens when I'm standing still, and it's a very peculiar sensation. But the key thing here is that because I don't actually have a problem with my own proprioceptive mechanisms, I don't actually lose my balance and fall over when this is happening. Which, as you now know, is what would happen if I was having an issue with the mechanisms themselves. People with these kinds of hallucinations will experience different kinds of movement sensations, but they won't actually be clumsy or off-kilter enough to end up on the floor. Another example is sometimes I feel like the ground below me has turned to rubber and is moving in waves below my feet. And I feel like I'm going up and down 3 or 4 inches at a time. And even though it's a misfire in my brain, I still put my hands out to balance myself because it fools my brain into thinking that I actually am off balance even though I'm not. Because I don't actually need the stability that my arms provide. Because again, I don't fall over, I don't have to catch myself. It's just this really, really strange feeling. And I don't see things around me as if I'm moving, I just feel the movement. So the hallucination itself doesn't spread to my other senses, which feels really odd when you think about it. But let me tell you, it is very weird to be standing still and then feel like I'm being shifted over and slipping on something when I haven't even moved. Like seriously, it feels like I stepped on a banana. That's the best way to describe it. But more accurately, it would be as if someone had put a banana under my feet while I was standing and then I slipped on it. But the thing is, these hallucinations, they feel very different from actually slipping. So much so that it was the first indication that what I was going through wasn't actually related to balance at all. I think it really comes down to the fact that even when I'm deep in the hallucinations, when it feels like the whole world is shifting and moving under me, I don't actually have the need to grab onto something to balance myself. Like, yes, I throw out my hands because my brain is fooled into thinking I'm about to fall over, but again, there's no risk. I'm not actually going to fall over. So part of it is like, okay, I'm feeling this thing, but I don't actually have to grab onto something. Okay, there's something up here. Because the thing is, with this kind of hallucination, slamming into the floor and falling over isn't really something that happens easily. But keep in mind, these aren't the only ways to have proprioceptive hallucinations. Some people report that they feel like they're falling straight down. Floating is another common experience, and people can feel like they're floating up a few inches or even higher. And shifting limbs, similar to what I described, is very common. Someone's shoulders, arms, and torso can also shift around, so it's not just legs and feet like what I experience. And so if you're having weird body placement sensations and there's no true physical issues, and you have a psychotic disorder, well, you could be experiencing this kind of hallucination. And it's not really talked about all that much, if at all, in many cases. And a quick Google search will tell you that there's not a lot of information out there on it. And hey, maybe that's how you found this video, a quick Google search. If so, hello. Welcome to Schizoaffective. I spread awareness about psychotic disorders. But anyways, a few people in my life I know go through this, and some of those people are you guys. So I'm not sure it's as rare as I'm being led to believe, because the internet makes it sound like it's this crazy rare thing, but I've heard of several people recently that go through it, so I know I'm not alone. Y'all aren't alone. But at the same time, me and the people I hang out with, we're kind of in a niche anyway, so the data might be a little bit different than that of the general population. But no, it's much more common to hear about seeing shadows and hearing voices than it is to have someone say, hey, I feel like I fall down a few feet every now and then. But it does happen, and I'm living proof of that. Anyways, that's all for this video. If you want to learn more about weird hallucinations that I experience, I made a whole video talking about extracampine hallucinations, which is another bizarre phenomenon that I experience as part of my schizoaffective disorder. So go check that out if you want to learn some weird psychology. But other than that, thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.